everybody, welcome back. Today I have 50 pieces of 38 special brass, and my objective for this video is to show you the techniques and some of the tricks that I use to produce 38 special ammunition using the Dillon RL550B progressive reloading press. First thing is first, as always, need to make sure that you have a good clear pair of safety glasses with no scratches, because you don't want to obstruct your view. And I want to stress that I'm not a reloading expert. Yes, I've been loading for many years, but I want you to take the information that I give with a grain of salt. Do your own research. Make sure that you study and understand that you find your own recipes and don't just take mine for granted. On the back of this card, this happens to be the primers that we're going to be using today. On the back of this card, I've wrote down some information of this load that we're going to put together. 38 special. The overall length is 1.47 inches. Trim length is 1.15. We're going to be using 124 grain cone cast bullets. These bullets were made using a Lyman mold, or excuse me, a Lee mold. They're actually a bullet that's designed for 9mm, but I like them very well in the 38 special. When these bullets come out of the mold, I have a couple different sets of sizing dies. If I want to load them for 9mm, I size them to .356. But when I want to load them for 38 special or 357, I load them to .357. They work great. Today's powder, I'm going to be using a Alliant Unique powder, and I'm going to be throwing about 5.5 grains of powder, 5.6. And Tool Ammo small pistol primers. That's the primers that we're going to use today. The first step that I like to do in this process is I like to take all these cases and lay them out. I have them on a paper towel right now. Even though the dies that I'm going to be using are carbide dies, I still lube my cases anyway. The type of lube that I like to use is made by Dillon, DCL, Dillon Case Lubricant. And I really like this stuff because it has two components. It has lanolin and it has isopropyl alcohol. Works really good. The alcohol is used as a propellant to send the lanolin through the air onto the cases. So I lay them down and I just give them a couple little squirts. Nothing too crazy. From here I just kind of toss them around a little bit, mix them up a little, and they're ready to go. I'll just let them sit, and what will happen is all of the alcohol will dry up, and what's left behind will be the lanolin. I'm at the point now where I want to fill my consumables on my press. So I'm using a Alliant Unique powder, and I'm basically going to just pour a little powder into the powder measure. We're only making 50 rounds, so that should be plenty of powder. Whenever I do loading, I always like to keep the the gunpowder that I'm going to be using for the load, I like to keep it on the table fairly close so that I can see what type of powder I'm using. The next part of consumables that I like to load is the primers. And on the Dillon, they have what they call a primer pickup tube. So I need to fill that pickup tube. So I'm going to take this package of primers. There happens to be 100 in here. And they're basically in rows of 10. So since I'm going to load 50 rounds, I'll just get 5 rows of primers. I'll take my primer pickup tray, or excuse me, my flip tray they call it, and I'll put it on top of the primers. Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see this. So my primers are sitting there. Basically going to put the flip tray on top of them. I'm going to flip the primers over, and from here I just lift it out of the way. Now for the most part they're all oriented correctly, but I'm going to shake it, and you notice they're all flipping over. That's what I want. That's what these little grooves are in this tray. You hear those little grooves? Those grooves are what help these primers orient to the correct side up. So it just takes a little bit of shaking. Some of them you can kind of push with your fingers, but that's basically what I need to do. I need to get them all flipped over. And these primer pickup trays do a very good job of helping you do that. For the most part I got them all. There's like one there that's being stubborn. Now, there they are. They're all facing with the anvil up. So from here, I set the pickup tray, the flip tray down. I take the little cover, I cover it, and now I flip them over and take the lid off. Now all the primers are sitting there in the tray, and they're oriented to the correct side. So now I'm going to take my primer pickup tube, and I have a blue end with the cotter pin, and I have a yellow end. The yellow end is the end that I'm going to use to stab the primers. And basically they go up into the pickup tube. So I'm going to load this whole thing with primers. And I'm sorry this has taken me so long, but bear with me. I really like the idea of these primer pickup tubes. They work really well. There's one that's kind of stuck there in the corner, so I'll get them out in the open where I can get them. So there's the last one. So now I have a loaded primer pickup tube. So here we are looking at the press. I've got my primer pickup tube in my hand, and I'm going to open this primer low primer alarm, and I'm going to take this rod out. The side of the primer pickup tube that has the cotter pin is going to go down. Okay, now this little follower rod, I'm going to go ahead and put it down into my primer pickup tube, and I'm going to set this cotter pin side down onto the blast shield. From here I pull the cotter pin, and all the primers go into the system. When I pull it up, you can see that the system's loaded with primers. From here I test my low primer alarm, And basically the way this low primer alarm works is as this primers get lower and lower, this little weight comes down and it'll touch the alarm and it'll tell me when I'm getting low on primers. So now our press is set. We're almost ready to go. So here's another view of the press, looking at it from the handle side. This is station 1. This is the decapping and resizing. This is station 2. Obviously we're going to put a powder charge on it and it's going to bell the case mouth. This is station 3. It's going to seat the bullet and it's also going to crimp the bullet. We're using the same die to do both operations because I had a 3-die set. This second die is not being used in this set because Dillon gives me, with a caliber conversion kit, they give me a piece that does the case mouth expansion for me. That's that piece right there. Those come with the caliber conversion kit, so that's why I don't need the second die. If I go over here to station 4, it's obvious that it's empty, but if I had a 4-die set, what I would generally do then would I'd be station 1 decap and resize, station 2 is going to bell the case mouth and charge, station 3 I would just seat bullets, and then in station 4 I would crimp the bullets. But since, like I said, I have a 3-die set, I'm doing both operations, crimping and seating here. So 4 is doing nothing. At this point, I like to take a single piece of brass and insert it into the system. What's going to happen here on station 1, which is where my finger is, let me back out so you can see. Station 1 is this first station right here where my finger is. What station 1 is going to do is, as I raise the ram, it's going to decap and resize that case. So it resized the full length of the case, and it also decapped, meaning it knocked out the old primer. When I insert the case back into the shell holder, if I push forward, it'll prime that case. So now I have a primed case that's been decapped and resized, and at this point it's ready to go to station 2. And what I'd like to do here is I'd like to verify the powder charge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little brass locator button out, and not only am I going to verify my powder charge, but I'm also going to verify the bell adjustment of the case. So I turn my scale on, and my scale is going to 0 to that case. I put the case on the press, I raise the ram, and 2 things happen. I bell the case mouth and I give it a powder charge. Let's check the powder charge. 5.9 grains. Little hot. Pour that back. Try it again. I made a small adjustment on the powder screw on the back. I'll show you that here in a second. 5.7. That's good. Okay, so we have good powder charge, and it looks like the belling adjustment is perfect for that bullet. See, it just barely fits in there. So we have a good powder charge, and we have a good bell on the case. So now I'm going to forward the case, and station 3 here is going to do 2 things. It's going to seat the bullet, and it's also going to crimp the bullet. And after we do this, I'm going to check for case overall length. So So here's our first completed cartridge. Now if we look at my paper, the case overall length is 1.47. So let's take a look and see how it looks as far as length. .47 is what we need. 1.4685. So our case overall length is perfect. There's one more thing I would like to verify, and that is my case length gauge. I want to see how the case fits. It's nice and flush here on the top. The primer is seated well. The bullet does not protrude the bottom. And I don't know if you noticed a second ago, but the case just fell right in there nice and easy. And that's what we want. So that's our first completed round. At this point, we're ready to start loading progressively. Okay, I had mentioned earlier that I would share with you how to adjust the powder measure. It's very simple. There's a screw here on the back, and if you want more powder, you turn this screw clockwise, and if you want less powder, you turn the screw counterclockwise. It's a very easy adjustment to make. So here comes a case into station 1. Decap and resize. I'm going to index over to station 2. 2 is going to get powder and it's going to bell the case mouth. 1 is going to decap and resize. Seat a primer. Goes to station 3 now. Put a bullet. 1 gets a brand new case. We're going to seat the bullet. Raise the ram. This is what I call the bases being loaded right now. Every station has a piece of brass on it. So every station's working. At this point on the press, every crank of the handle, I will get a completed round. So this hand basically comes in here and hands bullets. I'm sorry if my hand's getting in the way of the operation here. I'll try to give you a different view here in a second. Before you put a bullet into station 3, you always want to verify your powder charge, because you never want to put a bullet on an empty case. So very fine press does a great job. You can put out some ammunition fairly quickly, even though I don't suggest rushing by any means, but you can put ammo out very quickly. Good quality ammo. Something you want to look for, when I zoomed down on station 3 and I showed you the powder charge there a second ago, one thing I want to mention is if you were to accidentally double charge which I'll do now on purpose. I'll show you what a double charge looks like. 1, 2. Let me remove this brass locator button. Look at this. Let me back the camera off so you can see. You see how full that looks? So if you accidentally double charged, it would be blatantly obvious. So I'll put that back on the system. It's empty now because I poured it back into the top. So now I'm going to go ahead and charge it. I just did that to show you. Rotate, get a bullet. Cool thing about Dillon presses is they have the lifetime warranty. If you have any problems with their presses, they have a lifetime warranty. No BS warranty, as they put it. And I really like it. Before I bought this press, I had considered getting the Hornady lock and load auto progressive press, which is a very nice press also. But at the end of the day, I'm very glad that I got the Dillon. The lock and load AP to me was too automatic. When that happens, that little bind, that's because this paper clip's not adjusted all the way in. But that's, I just don't ever adjust it. Well, I just put the last piece of brass into the system. So there you have it. There's 50 rounds in little time at all. So I'm basically done. I'm going to take my loading block here, and with the information on the rounds, I'm going to set that with it. Basically, I'm just going to do a quick inspection of them, make sure that they're fitting into this case length gauge real well. I might wipe them down with the rag at this point, but main thing is I want to see that they're going to chamber well. You know, these are revolver cartridges, so just want to make sure that they're going to fit well into the gun. These case length gauges are great. If you didn't have one, you could use the revolver. You know, you could open the cylinder and make sure they're going to chamber, but I personally don't tend to like to get in the habit too much of using the gun to verify things. I like to use a case length gauge. There was something wrong with that one. It didn't have a primer. So somewhere during the point I missed a primer. I'm going to set that one aside. That one will get bullet pulled. So that's basically why this inspection is so crucial. So I'm just looking at everything, making sure everything's good, making sure that the bullets are in order. If I would have just took them out to the range, I would have found out that that one didn't have a primer. So I'm also, not only am I checking the case length gauge, but I'm also running my finger across for two reasons. One, I want to feel the brass as far as its flushness with the case length gauge, and secondly, I'm feeling the primer to make sure that the primer is seated well. They're kind of sticking in this case length gauge a little bit because they still have lube on them, even though technically, you know, those are carbide dies and I don't really need to lube. I still do anyway. I don't see nothing wrong with it. It just seems to make the operation a little smoother than it could have been, you know, had it not been lubed. And I think I made 52 rounds, I think. I think there's like 2 extras. So I just set that one back, but because it didn't have a primer. And basically with that one, I'll probably just take a bullet puller to it, get it pulled, because I don't know if there was any powder that came out of that flash hole or not. So just to be on the safe side, instead of just seating a primer, I'll probably just bullet pull it and verify that load. Now this one had a little bit of trouble going in. It did go in, but I had to kind of push a little. So let me see what's going on with this one. Let me clean it with my rag. Might be a bad piece of brass or something, who knows. Yeah, it fell right in that time. So it was just dirty. That's what's nice about this case length gauge. You can find the flaws now instead of being out on the range trying to shoot and then you have one that won't go in the cylinder. You basically weed out the ones now that might have problems. This bullet shoots really well. I love casting my own bullets. It can be a cumbersome process because you got to go out and you got to find lead, and then you got to mix it and pour ingots, and then you got to, it is a cumbersome process. It's one of those processes that if you're not a patient kind of person, casting bullets might not be the best idea for you. But if you can be, you know, if you're the kind of person that has a lot of patience, you could get a very good result out of casting your own bullets. You save a lot of money, you know, but you have to understand the chemistry behind it, you know, you're dealing with lead, melting it down and putting antimony and hardened tin in it. That way you don't have a soft bullet. If there's any of you out there that might be thinking about getting into lead casting, feel free to take a look at my videos. I have some pretty good videos on lead casting. Feel free to comment on them. Feel free to subscribe to my channel if you wish. I thought I made 2 extra, but apparently I didn't. Looks like I made 50 right on the button. So that one, I'm gonna bullet pull it, and then I'll seat a primer, recharge, reseat, and I'll be back in a minute. Okay, I'm back. I just finished this last round. This is the one that didn't have a primer. Now it feels fine. And that basically completes my 50 rounds. So this tag with all the information is going to go with the bullets, because no matter where they go, I want to know what they are, what date they were made, and things of that nature. So there you have it. There's 50 rounds of 38 special. It's a very nice shooting bullet. And again, I appreciate y'all for watching. Thanks. Bye-bye. Have a good day.